Hello guys, welcome back. In this video, we are going to learn something interesting on AWS. We are going to create a generative AI app using various services in AWS. The best thing about this video will be I'll be explaining and doing things from scratch, and everything will be step by step. Even if I'll be writing code, I'll explain everything line by line. So even if you don't know how to create a generative AI app as of now, you will still be able to follow this video and you will learn everything from scratch. So this is going to be beneficial for you. I recommend you to watch till end and try to do all the steps that I'm doing and follow along the video. Just in case if you face any issue or have any question, feel free to ask me in the comment. So let's make most out of this video and let's get started. So first of all, let me explain you the architecture of the generative AI app that we are going to create. The name of our application that we are going to create is blog generation. So we will create an application which we will try to access through Postman API. And within AWS, we will use few services like Amazon API Gateway, Amazon Lambda, Amazon S3 and Amazon Bedrock. Amazon API Gateway is a service through which you can create API endpoints, and when that API endpoint is hit, it will trigger a Lambda function in AWS. So this Lambda function, we will write that in Python. I'll show you how. Amazon Bedrock is an AWS service which has different foundation models available. For example, Llama 2, Llama 3, and there are many others. We will see what all models are available over there. But yeah, like different models are available in Amazon Bedrock, and Lambda will try to use that model, which we will specify in the Lambda code, and it will give the input to Amazon Bedrock, and the Amazon Bedrock will give an output to Lambda, and then Lambda will store that in Amazon S3. So what input and output we are going to get? So as the application name is blog generation, so we are going to generate a blog. We will send a query to our generative AI application. For example, create a blog of 200-300 words, and then API gateway will pass that query to Lambda, and then Lambda will give that input to Amazon Bedrock, and Amazon Bedrock will give the response, that is the blog itself, and then it will store that output to Amazon S3. So this is the architecture. Now let's go ahead and implement it. So here I am on my AWS account. I hope you already have an AWS account, and here in the search bar you can search for Bedrock. This is Amazon Bedrock, and I also have this available here in the recently visited panel. But yeah, just in case if you don't see it here, you can just search for it and click on it. If you are using it for the first time, like you will need to get access to various models, various foundation models. So as you can see, like here's the tab for foundation models, and here is the catalog. So there are different providers available here like AI21 Labs, Amazon, Anthropic, Cohere, and so on. And as you can see, like I have been granted the access to these models. And here you can see view model catalog. But also like there are different categories mentioned here. For example, chat text. So if you want to generate text for a vast range of language processing tasks, you can probably select this one, open the playground. If you want to have an application related to image and video to easily generate compelling images, or by providing text prompts to pre-trained model, you can use this one. So various foundation models will be available here, and if you just want to discover marketplace model, click on this, and here you will see all the models available, right? So for example, I want it for Meta. So here's the Meta one, and Llama 3.3, 3.2, and so on. So I have already been granted the access to all these models. Now to get access to various foundation model, you need to go down below here and click on this model access link, and this will open this list. So I already have access to all these models, right? From Amazon, Titan, Text, G1, and so on, Cohere, Meta. So we'll be using this Llama one. But yeah, if you want to have access, you can click on modify model access, and here you can simply check the check boxes that you want the access for, and then just click on next. As of now, I already have a access, so no modifications were made. What I'll do, I'll just uncheck this one and I'll go to next. I'll just modify it and then submit. So it will review and accordingly it will grant me the access. So as you can see here, I just uncheck this. So it is saying available to request. Okay. So this is how you can get the access. And there's one more thing to note here is like I am currently in United States, North Virginia region. So depending on the region, the model might not be available. So be careful of that. Okay, so now we have the access to the required models. Now create a Lambda function. So for that, I'll again go to the search bar and we'll search for Lambda. So this is the AWS service that we need to click on. Let's go to Lambda main page. So just to brief you about what is Lambda. So Lambda is serverless computing. So for example, if you want to run your code without having a EC2 instance or a server, so all you need to do is go here and click a Lambda function and write your code straight away. And this code can be executed or triggered based on certain events. For example, when that API is being hit, it will trigger this Lambda code. And there are other ways also you can trigger the Lambda. For example, you can run it as a cron job as well. For example, at a particular time you can trigger it. So there are many triggers that you can apply. So here, as you can see, like I already have one Lambda function, but we are going to create one more. So here is the create function button. I'm just going to click on that and this is the page that is going to get open. It has three options: author from scratch, that means we will be writing the code from scratch, or you can use a blueprint. So build a Lambda application from sample code and configuration present for some common use cases. Or we can create it from a container image. We can select a container image to deploy your function. So we are going to stick with this author from scratch option. So let's give it a name, Bedrock Demo. Here in the runtime, I'm going to select Python 3.12 because this is the version that we are going to use while writing our code. So rest of the things I'm going to keep as default, like whatever the values are being here. So create a new role with basic Lambda function and all those stuff. But yeah, if you are writing with your custom requirement, you can definitely go ahead and change all these things. But we are going to stay with this one and click on create function. It has successfully created the function and this is the diagram how it looks like. And as you can see here, it has a trigger button. So we can click on add trigger. There can be different triggers through which it can be executed. So for example, API gateway. So we are going to see all these shortly. Let's go back to our Lambda function. And if I go down below, it has a code source, which has a sample code written over here. And this is the file name. So we are going to write the whole code. And below that, you can see all the code properties, runtime setting. And this is the configuration part, and you can see like how much memory it has been allocated, what is the storage that has been allocated, the timeout settings, and there are options for environment variable as well. If your code is using some environment variable, you can give that. So let's go to general configuration, and here we have 0 minute 3 second timeout. This timeout quite less because the model might take a bit of time to respond, right? So what we are going to do, we will edit this and we will change it to 5 minutes. So this is just to be on safer side because Bedrock might take some time to respond, right? So the code execution should not get timed out waiting for the response. Let's go ahead and save this one. Okay, it has successfully updated the function. Now we will go back to the code section. Here is the code section. And it has some sample code, but I'm not going to write everything here because as you know, like we are using Copilot and we are not going to get suggestion here, right? So I'll write the code in my VS Code. I'll just create a folder here. I'll give the name Bedrock Demo. Here I'll go to that folder, Bedrock Demo, and we are going to create the environment conda create -p virtual environment, and the Python version that we are going to use is 3.12. Let's create this one. Now we will activate this environment. So conda activate vnv, and it is activated now. Let's check the Python version quickly, and it is 3.12. Now the next thing we are going to do is we will create a requirement.txt file which will have all the requirement. So this is the requirement.txt file. Here I'm going to import certain things. So the Python library that we want to install is Boto3. Boto3 is a Python based library to access or modify AWS resources. So since we will be interacting with Bedrock and other services, so we will need to have Boto3 available. So let's go ahead and install it using pip install -r requirement.txt. Okay, it is installed now. Next thing we need to do is we need to write our main Python code. So I'm going to create a new file and I'll simply write it as main.py. Here we are going to import Boto3, and another thing we are going to import is botocode.config. Now we are going to create our function. The function name I'm going to use is generate blog. Okay, generate blog is sufficient, and this is going to take an input which will be like blog topic, and this will be a string. This is going to return a blog which will be again a string. So now here we will be writing the prompt. Before that, let me show you which model I'm going to use. So here I'll just search for Bedrock. I'll open that in a new tab. So the one which we are going to use is we'll go to providers, go to meta. We will use this llama 3.1 8 billion instruct. So as you can see, what all things it can do is it has ability to follow instruction and task, improved reasoning and understanding of nuances and context, and multilingual translation. So these are the features, and the language it is going to support are 8 languages including English, German, French and all these. So this is great. Now how we can use this? So this is the API request which has model ID. We will need all these information in our code: the content type and the content that it accepts and the body. So we need to write the prompt, and this is how the body is going to be. This is where you place your input text, and the max generation length is 512. Okay, so we will use all these information. Okay, I have written the code for the prompt. Now let me explain you what actually this is doing. So the very first thing that you see is S within angular bracket. This is like a custom token that indicates the start of a special section, and you have inst in square bracket. So this is an instruction to the model. The next thing we are specifying is human. This part indicates that the text following this label is coming from a human. Next thing is we are giving an input like write 250 words blog on the topic, and this is the variable, and this will be passed through the API. Okay, the next thing is assistant. So this indicates the model will respond to the request, and /inst is the closing tag for the instruction section. So thus this prompt is a string that contains a conversation structure between human and the assistant, asking the assistant to write a blog about the given topic. And now within body we need to pass all these parameters, right? And here we are passing temperature. So temperature, like for this particular key, represents the randomness of the generated text, and we are passing top underscore p. So this key refers to nucleus sampling, which is another method to control the randomness of the model's output. So don't worry if you don't get all these keywords, but yeah, you can just use this like as I'm using. Now we are going to actually call the bedrock, and before calling that we are going to write all these in try catch block. So my Copilot prompt has already written this code for me. So basically what we are doing, we will have a client. Let's name this as bedrock, and using the Boto3 client we are going to call bedrock runtime. So here it has automatically taken SageMaker, but right now we are not looking for SageMaker, we are using bedrock. So let's make this bedrock runtime, and the region name, now I need to change this a bit. Another thing that we are going to pass is region name, and then we are going to give config equals to botocore dot config, and the read timeout. And another thing that we can pass as retries. So retries I'm going to keep as max attempt as 3. I'm just going to remove this all this auto generated code, and I'll write my custom one. We have created the client. Now we need to invoke it. So I'll write bedrock dot invoke model, and here I'll pass the body as json.terms, and I'll pass the body variable. We have not imported JSON right now, so let's go ahead and import that. And apart from passing the body, we need to pass the model ID as well. So it's model ID. Model ID equals to the model that we are using. So let's go to our Amazon Bedrock and copy the model ID. So this is the model that we are using. I'll just copy this one and put it here. Okay, great. Now we are going to get a response, right? I'll write response data equals to response.get, and we will fetch the body of the response and we will read that, and then we are going to convert this to JSON response data. Okay, fair enough. So this is also good. We need to import response as well. So response is not defined, so let's go ahead and do that. And let's also import this response data into a variable, and I'll just name it response result. Okay, now let us simply print it, print response result, and let's also fetch the block details, which will be response result, and we will fetch generation, and then we are going to return the block details. And just in case if we find an exception, so this will be our exception block, and we are going to print the exception. Let's make it more clear, so it will be like this: error generating the block, and we will write this exception as is, and we will return nothing. Okay, awesome. As you can see, the Copilot is suggesting to write a function lambda handler. So what lambda handler function is? Basically in lambda, when it get executed, it is generally executed through a handler function, and that handler function captures event and context. The event is like how that function should be executed, and that will have all the available inputs to that function. If you go to our AWS console on lambda, and if you see this default code, right, so it has this lambda handler function. This is what will be executed, and it has event and context input. It is doing something, right? So let's go ahead and copy this, and let's write this lambda handler function. So let me remove this default code, and here what I'm going to do, I'm going to capture the input from event. So suppose in event we will take event body. Okay, so everything will come, all the input will come in the event, and we will capture the event body as event. Now we are going to specify the block topic, right? So blocks topic, and we will fetch that from event having the key blocks topic. So when we make an API call, we will have blocks topic set and its value will be transferred here. Don't worry if you don't understand this completely. Once we complete the whole demo, you will be able to relate all these very easily. And I suggest you to watch this video again once you have completed this. Then you will be easily able to capture all these details which I am explaining. Okay, now we have got the blog topic. We are going to generate the blog, and we will store that generated blog in a variable called generated blog, and we will call this function which we have created, generate blog, and we will pass that blogs topic here. Now our blog has been generated. In this particular variable it will be stored. Next thing we are going to check is if this generated blog is available, then we are going to store it in S3. So if blog is generated, then we need to store it in S3. And for S3, I'll save the file name with current time. Okay, so that like if I provide the same name, for example, machine learning is the topic I am giving. If I give it multiple time, and if I save it with the same name, then I won't be able to identify which one was created first or second, right? Although it will have an internal timestamp, but just by looking at the file name, we cannot identify, right? So for that, I'm going to get the current time. Okay, and I'm going to use this. Now as you can see, it is giving an error date time because it is not imported. So let's click on quick fix and import date and time. So the error has gone, and as you can see, like it has been imported here. Awesome, it is imported. Now I'm going to write the S3 key. So S3 key is nothing but the path, and it will be like this, blog underscore and current time dot txt. Now we need to specify the bucket that we are going to use. So s3 underscore bucket equals to, let's go ahead and see what all buckets we have. So let's search for s3 and let's go to s3. And as you can see, it already have one bucket, Kubernetes interview question. So I'm just going to use that one, or you can create a new one as well if you want. It's completely up to you. So let's use this. And if it is not generated, then in else section we are going to say no blog was generated. Now we have given all these details, but right now we are not actually saving this file to S3. For that, we need to create a function, and we will call that function as save blog, and we are going to provide this the S3 key that we have just written and the S3 bucket. And here we need to create an S3 client. So from boto3 we will create a client, and s3 dot put object because we are saving, and the bucket we are specifying the key and the body. Okay, so as you can see, like we also need to pass the generated block parameter. So this is the benefit when you use Copilot. Okay, sometime if you forget to write something, already suggest you that. Okay, awesome. So this we have got, and block saved to s3 with key. Now we just need to call this function, right? So just after putting all these values, we need to call this function save blog, and we will pass all these information that we have just created. Now we have saved the blog. Just after saving that, we need to return something, right? Like an API request return something. We need to return the status code and some message, right? So we are going to return one thing. We are going to return as status code. Another thing will be blog generated successfully. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Copilot. So it has generated this piece of code for me, which is more than good. So this whole code looks good for us. Now we just need to copy this. Let's go and paste it in the lambda. So here I'm going to remove the existing code and I'm going to paste the one. Another thing is the Boto3 library is not available by default in lambda. So what we have to do is we have to add it as a zip file. You can install Boto3 here within this whole folder, and you can zip the whole folder and upload that as a layer. So that's one way. And there is another way of adding layers as and when required. For example, we can just put the code and we can add this dependency of Boto3 as a layer. So this will be the best practice to add different layer one by one, because this will help you to differentiate the layer, just like you have layers in Docker images, right? So if one layer is changed, the other remains intact and the image building is faster. So it is better to have different layer for different requirements, or maybe if required, if you think like it is not going to change, then you can zip it in a single bundle and upload it. So here I have boto3 underscore layer dot zip. Okay, so this have all my requirements which I am using here. So as you can see here, I have already added a layer. If you click on this, you can go here and click on add layer, and here you can click on custom layer and select the layer you want to add. Now the question is from where these layers which are listed here has come from. So for that you need to go to lambda, and on the left hand side you have layers option, and here you can create a layer. Just give it a name, a description, and then if you are uploading it through a zip file, you can select this option. Else you can select the option to upload a file from Amazon S3, and then simply choose your file which is present on your laptop, and then you can select compatible architecture, compatible runtime, which is Python 3.12 in our case, and license is optional, and simply click on create. Once you create it from here, it will be available over there which I just showed you, right? So it will be available here, and you can click on add layer and select it from here and simply click on add, then it will be available. Okay, now we have this code available here. All we will do is we are going to deploy this one using this button. Okay, it has successfully updated the function, it has deployed it. It says deployment is successful. Now our code is ready. All we need to do is we need to add a trigger, that is to create an API gateway. So let's go to the service called API gateway. This is the service. Click on it. So here you can create, maintain and secure API at any scale. You can create your endpoint, and in turn this endpoint will hit AWS Lambda function that we have just created. Now the API type that we are going to use will be HTTP API. So it works with Lambda or HTTP backends. So this is what we are interested in. Just in case if we already have an API available, we can import it. Otherwise we are going to build it. So I'm going to build it from scratch. Here we will be just providing the API name. It will be anything, right? So it will be bedrock demo, or you can also give it a version like v1 or something, but let's just keep bedrock demo for now, and then click on review and create. So let's go ahead and create it. So this is now created. Now we will need to create routes for this API. So here I'm just going to click on create, and here the type of the method will be post, because we'll be making a post API call, and then we need to provide a path. Okay, so like let's give it a name, generate blog. and then click on create. Okay, so this post request is generated. If you click on it, you will see these details of the route. Here we have something called authorization. So if you want to protect our API call against unwanted API call, our API endpoint getting hit randomly by anyone, if you want to protect that, so we can add authorization. We can have a key, we can have a token, and only those who have this token will be able to hit the API. But just for the demo purpose, I am not attaching any authorization as of now. The next thing will be integration. So the integration is the backend resource that this route is going to call when it receives a request. Okay, so the backend resource that we want to execute is lambda. So we are going to attach that lambda here. So click on attach integration, click on create and attach an integration. Here you need to specify the integration type, and the type is we want to execute a lambda function. So select that one and just select where it is. So our lambda is in US East 1. I'm just going to click here and it will auto populate. So this is the function bedrock demo that we need to select. Let's click on create. Okay, now our bedrock demo route is attached with this lambda function, as you can see here. Now if you see a general 3-tier architecture, or general environment in any organization, it has development environment, it has staging environment, it has production environment, right? So based on that, we can have this API endpoint available for different endpoint. So for that, I'm going to create a stage. So on the left hand side, we have stages. Here it is default, right? The like whatever you create will be in default, but I want to have this explicitly for a dev environment. So I'm going to give a name dev. I can add specific environment variable here for this particular stage and add some tags if I want, and then click on create. Now here the thing you see, invoke URL. So this is the endpoint that we are going to call. Okay, now we need to deploy this one. So here is the deploy button. If I click on deploy, it will ask me to choose the stage, and if I click on this, I can see dev, and let's click on deploy. Okay, now this is deployed. All we need to do is, and our all resources are ready, so we are good to use this API endpoint. I'll just copy this one. So we are going to use Postman to make this API call, and here is my Postman using the light version, and here the request will be post and the URL I am going to paste here. So this is the endpoint, but we have created a path, right? A route. Okay, route is here. The route which we have created is /generate blog. So I'm going to copy that and we'll put it here. Now we need to pass the body, and it will be raw, and from the body we are going to pass the blog topic that we want to generate the blog for. Okay, so if we go to the code section and see, we have specified the blog topic for the event, and the variable name is blogs topic. This is the one. So let's go ahead and write our body. So we are passing blog topic, and we need to specify the topic on which we want to generate. So let's keep the topic as generative AI. Okay guys, so everything is ready. Now we just need to send the request. So let's hope if it works fine. If not, we will debug. Okay, so I'm going to click on this one, and it is sending request. Okay, it says internal server error. It has given 500 response. Let's go to the lambda function and let's see if it got executed. Okay, so we will go to this lambda function, and here go to monitor section. And as you can see, there is no recent invocation. So the lambda has not been executed. There is something wrong with the API gateway, I think. Let's go here. Let's go ahead and deploy it again. Deployment is active for dev. So I pause the video and I tried to debug what was the issue. So there were three main issues that I found. So one of the issue was I created the API gateway in some other region, whereas my Lambda function was in US East region. So I simply recreated the same API gateway in North Virginia, that is US East 1 region. That's one thing I changed, and that is something you can just recreate by following the same steps that I did. Okay, so there is no major change, only the region change. You just need to go to US East 1 and create the whole API gateway just like that. Okay, so I have changed it and deployed it here, and this is my endpoint that I'll be using. Another small issue was I was trying to use date and time to store the timestamp in the file name of the blog that has been generated, because we want to store that to S3, right? So I need to import date and time like this instead of simple import date and time. Okay, so this is one of the change that I did, and after this change obviously you need to deploy it, right? The third thing was I was getting an error. Let me tell you what error that was, and I can see that error in the log group of this Lambda function. So that error was in this log group. So this is the error you can get, error generating the blog, because an error occurred when calling the invoke model, and I was trying to invoke the model through the model ID with an on-demand throughput. It is not supported that I can call the model or invoke the model using the model ID. Instead, what it says is retry your request with ID of inference profile. So I need to use ID or ARN of inference profile that contains this model. So as you can see here in my code, I was using meta llama 3. Okay, but instead of this, I should use the ID of inference profile. So we will see like where we can find that. So we need to go to Amazon Bedrock, and this is the model that I am trying to use, llama 3.1 8 billion instructs. I am in model catalog. I can get the model ID here, but I cannot get the inference profile ID. Okay, for that I need to go to this cross region inference, and here I need to find my model US meta llama 3.1 8 billion instruct, this one. Okay, you need to go here and you will find all those details here. This is the ARN of the inference profile, and this is the inference profile ID. So you need to use either of these, and what I have done is I have used this one, us.metallama3. So if we go to lambda function, and here in the model ID I have put this one. Okay, so this is the change that I did, and obviously after this change you need to deploy it. And after this we can simply go here and put a topic. Let me put a topic, debugging AI and ML model, and let's send the request. It will take certain time because it processes and try to generate the blog. So it says blog generated successfully. Let us go to the logs and see if we have that log available. I'll just refresh this, and this is the latest log group. I'll just open this one, and you can see the generation has happened. Let me expand this. So it has generated the block with the title, debugging AIML models, a crucial step in ensuring accuracy. And this is the whole block content. And at the end you can also see the blog saved to S3 with the name aiinfab 747. Okay, so let us go on the bucket and see if it is generated. This is my bucket that I used. Let me just refresh this. Okay, so this is the one, aiinfab 747. If I just click on this and try to download it, it's downloaded. Let's open, and as you can see, this is the content which it generated. Okay, and there is one more thing, just in case like if you are facing any permission issue, then you can give specific access to this lambda function, or just for the demo or trying it out, you can give the administrator access to the role that you have applied to lambda function. You just need to do all these things and you will be able to create a generative blog application using foundation model in AWS Bedrock. If you face any issue or you are stuck anywhere, feel free to ask me in comment, and if you are able to run your blog, then let me know in the comment section.